What's going on, PhinManiacs listeners? Happy Friday night. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Friday PhinManiacs preview. Brandon Liguori, Matthew Morin. Matthew, what's really interesting to me is ever since we started this show, and it's not really going to end off well. What I'm really about to say, the Dolphins still haven't won a football game since we debuted this show, and last week's performance, falling 23-20 to a Jacksonville Jaguar squad that coming into that game had lost 20 consecutive football games. I have to give you a lot of credit because you did say that this was a game that the Dolphins are, kind of bound to lose because Jacksonville has nothing to really play for coming into that game 0-5. And you can even look on the sidelines, if you watched all these Jaguars games prior to this past Sunday, head coach Urban Meyer just, looks flat out stressed. But before we get into the nuts and bolts of it, how's your week been, buddy?
Oh man, they ruined it. But my Hurricanes ruined it. They ruined it. But other than that, personally, I had a good weekend. Hung out with the family a little bit, so that's always good. That'll always distract you from the turmoil that is Miami football, professionally and collegiately. So yeah, it was good, man. It was good, man. Not bad.
I mean, really, there's always a positive to take away from any loss. I mean, I know the Dolphins did suffer a 35-0 loss this season in week 2, but you're always able to dissect a little positive notes. I think really one positive that I took away from that 3-point loss this past Sunday, Tua Tagovailoa looked very, very good. 33 for 47, over 300 passing yards. He did throw a quote unquote stupid interception. Again, it happens. Every NFL player is bound to make mistakes like that. But He did also throw 2 touchdown passes to wideout Jalen Waddle, who's been really impressing as Miami's first round pick this past April. What did you see on those, 2 clean, crisp routes from Waddle? It really also seemed like the Dolphins really could have put this game to bed early because I believe they did have an early 13-3 first half lead.
Well, I was intrigued after the first drive, but I knew down deep that this is a game that I've seen my whole life. I can remember going back to the Tannehill days when we played Tampa Bay on Monday night, and they had Mike Glennon starting, and they were horrible. And I just remember thinking to myself then I was like, there's no way we lose this game. We're a more talented team, et cetera, et cetera. And I remember my dad telling me, yes, they will absolutely lose this game. This is the game that they've been losing for years. And then it happened, and that's when I learned that lesson. And that's when that prediction came to life last week. I'm like, yes, they can lose this game. They might lose this game. But as far as Waddle, he looked explosive. He looked twitchy. He looked fast per usual. And he just gets open, man. He knows how to do that. And he was able to make the catch and 2 solid throws from Tua. I'm sorry. Tua looked great. He just had those 2 plays. The one was the pick, and then he had this rollout where he just decided to toss one over to Gaskin instead of just running to get the first down. And you could tell he just kind of like kicked himself after, like, what am I doing? But other than that, he played great, considering, he's got the broken ribs and everything. Definitely an encouragement from him. I just think Miami, it's just nothing's going their way, man. They've got to find a way to win football games. That's really what it comes down to.
I think this is kind of a foolish question to ask because of the way Miami has performed in the first 6 games of the year. And, Brian Flores' squad is on a current 5-game losing streak as well. But do you think that this loss this past Sunday morning, I say, morning because this game was played in London,
Right.
do you think, this loss maybe crashed any potential playoff hopes? I mean, I know it does seem funny to talk about playoffs because Miami flat out does not deserve to be a playoff team this year. It's obvious that, the Buffalo Bills are most likely to be crowned the AFC East champions. But do you think this loss probably hurt Miami's playoff chances, if there's even any?
Oh, yeah. I mean, whatever was left, I think, is now – I'm not going to say it's eviscerated, like it's gone, but I'll say that it took a big, considerable hit, I think it's becoming more like clearer and clearer every week that this staff maybe didn't know what they were in for this year. And it's not really about the injuries and certain, other variables that have gone on. There's just like there are easy there's easy stuff that's going on that we are just missing, and
Mhm.
it's evident. And I think it falls on coaching as opposed to talent or what we have or we don't have, who we should have drafted, et cetera, et cetera. A lot of this is on Flores, and I like Flores, but he has pretty much, I'm not going to say ruined, that's a little rough, but whatever trust he built with Dolphins fans last year in the second half of the season, he's soiled a lot of it. I'm not going to say all of it, but he's put a big dent in it, with the start to this year. So that's my position on it all. And you can see my demeanor. I'm not like excited about
Of
this
course.
team. It's hard to get excited, but that's where we are right now.
And, I'm glad you also spoke about the injuries, Matthew, because last week the Dolphins did not have Devontae Parker, did not have Xavier Howard, did not have Preston Williams, and did not have Byron Jones. So Miami was walking into this Week 6 contest with a banged-up secondary and, two potential stud wideouts. Again, we've seen Devontae Parker make these plays. He makes these one-on-one catches, these 50-50 balls that really for Parker seems like an 80-20 catch. But now you fast forward to now Week 7. The Dolphins return home to Hard Rock Stadium to host the 2-3 Atlanta Falcons, who, just like the Dolphins, their last game was also in London. But I have to give advantage to the Falcons just because they're off a bye week. They haven't played, I believe, since October 17th. So they do. I think the week before October 10th.
Right.
So they have, a nice rest period between that game. And speaking of the injuries, Jalen Phillips, Devontae Parker himself, Xavier Howard, even the center, Greg Mance, these are all guys that are listed as questionable walking into Sunday's game, which means they're probably going to be game time decisions. We'll see how tomorrow unfolds with it being Saturday if something major breaks.
Right.
If the Dolphins are not able to have, Matt, Preston Williams, Xavier Howard, if they're not able to have those same four guys again, is this a kind of, a walk in the park for Atlanta that could possibly drop the Dolphins to 1-6?
No, I wouldn't say it'd be a walk in the park. I'd say it gets a lot easier for them for sure. So, considering, like you said, great point, they're coming off a bye week. That is huge in the NFL, especially at this juncture of the season.
Correct.
You're not midway, but you're close. You're starting to get, a little more injuries. The guys are more banged up. There's certain things that guys are going to keep playing through.
Mm-hmm.
You're coming off a bye week and you're mostly healthy. That's an advantage in the NFL. No matter how much more talented you are, how less talented you are, it's an advantage. So I would say that it doesn't guarantee a win for Atlanta, but it definitely gives them a better shot because Miami can't seem to do anything right now.
Well, when you take a magnifying glass and look closely at this Atlanta offense, 2, maybe even 3 players probably attract you the most, right? Quarterback Matt Ryan, tight end Kyle Pitts, who me and you know very, very well, tight end out of the University of Florida, the first tight end taken. I believe he was taken top 5. I mean, he's that dominant.
4th overall.
Mm-hmm. And then wide receiver Calvin Ridley, who is a Broward County product. He did attend Monarch High School. When you take a look at just those 3 guys, and I honestly didn't even mention Cordell Patterson, who really has become a main focal point for Arthur Smith's team. This is a very dangerous team. I mean, don't count Atlanta out at just 2-3. I know they're in the same division as the Tampa Bay Buccaneers with quarterback Tom Brady. So a lot of people don't really talk about Matt Ryan's team as much. But this is not an easy opponent Miami will look at come this upcoming Sunday. And Miami's in for a real tough challenge. I believe the latest line has the Dolphins sitting at 2.5-point underdogs.
Yeah, for sure. And especially if Xavier and Byron are going to be out again. Matt Ryan's an experienced dude. He's been in the big stage. He's been in this moment before. This is nothing new to him. He will go in there and, for the most part, have a good game, I'd say. Especially if, 2 best corners and 2 of the best are sitting out for the Dolphins. Kyle Pitts is a generational type talent. He can obviously stretch the field and hurt you in basically, every point of the field. And then you got Cordell Patterson, who's, I give him credit. He's kind of resurged his career here. He was a factor in Minnesota, but now he's, he was a little bit of an afterthought. Now he's in Atlanta and he's making plays. So all the praise to him.
And not only is he making plays at the wideout spot, Arthur Smith has turned him into a running back. Arthur Smith has turned him into a punt/kick returner. So it'll be interesting to see what factor he can make this upcoming Sunday, knowing the positions that Arthur Smith and, Atlanta's offensive coordinator, how they've been able to dissect them into Matt Ryan's group. Let me tell you something. I've been saying for the past 2-3 weeks that a Miami Dolphins football game is a must win. We said it against Oakland. They didn't get the job done. We said it against Indianapolis. They didn't get the job done. We kind of knew, obviously everyone always says any given Sunday, but we did kind of expect a Tampa Bay blowout win, and that happened as expected. And now last week, it was literally a must-win game. You can't lose to a Jacksonville Jaguar squad. So now, Matt, you walk into this game, give me 2 to 3 keys that really just has to go Miami's way to just salvage something. I mean, one key could even – are they able to pick up their first victory at Hard Rock Stadium? Are they able to pick up their first victory in over a month? How do you see this all playing out?
Well, I think they're definitely able. Even if those guys are going to be out, the ones that are on the IR, on the injury report as of now, they could definitely win this game. I'd say 3 keys for sure. You got to get pressure on Matt Ryan. He's one of the few guys that's left that's a pure pocket passer, and he's not Brady. He's not going to hurt you like that, but he can hurt you.
Mm-hmm. No,
you just got to get pressure on him. Matt Ryan's not a statue. Don't get me wrong. He can make plays, but I feel like, if you get pressure on him early and you make it known that you're going to be there most of the day, he's probably not going to be himself. So that's number one. And Jalen Phillips being healthy would have a lot to do with that. Hopefully, I haven't heard anything about Ogba being hurt, so he's a full go.
Yeah, I didn't see which speaking of Emmanuel Ogba, he had a great pass deflection off Jaguars quarterback Trevor Lawrence.
Yes, he did.
And let's also give credit to defensive end Christian Wilkins, who had a strip sack of his former Clemson teammate Zach Sealer recovering the fumble. That really did juice up Miami's defense. This was a team that it looked like for a moment they were going to be trailing by double digits in the fourth quarter, and Christian Wilkins really made a Superman-like play, put in the Dolphins in great position. They had so many chances to win that football game. It honestly should not have came down to a game-winning field goal from Matthew Wright, a UCF product, and a lot of people really don't even know who Matthew Wright was prior to that game. Matt, did you also know that prior to Sunday, Jacksonville has not made a field goal?
Oh, I did know that. I actually saw that stat right before the first kick, which I believe was 57, some odd number like that. And in my head, in my head as a Dolphins fan all my life, I read that tweet and I'm like, well, naturally he's gonna make it, right? And of course he split it. Well, that was the one that it found a way to get in there.
It curved for a bit towards the right up marks, and it went in. But really, I don't want to say Brian Flores has necessarily lost this locker room, but how do you think that locker room is right now? Because it's obviously a tough locker room. I watch these interviews every single day when the media group talks to the offensive coordinator, the defensive coordinator, Flores himself, and selected players. They seem like the locker room is not really lost. But when you're a football team sitting at 1-5 with the expectations that the Dolphins really had this season, Matt, correct me if I'm wrong. This was supposed to be year 3 of a team that was supposed to compete with the Buffalo Bills for an AFC East championship. An AFC East division title. I don't really necessarily want to put them in the same category yet because they're nowhere near Baltimore. They're nowhere near Buffalo. They're nowhere near even Kansas City, who hasn't really played up to their standards that we've seen Patrick Mahomes and company play in recent memory. But how do you think that locker room is right now? Because, we're obviously not in it 24/7. I don't even think the media guys and the media girls are allowed in it because of COVID-19 protocols. How do you see the locker room being just on any typical day, knowing that you are 1-5 on a current 5-game losing streak?
Well, from a player perspective, I'm sure you continue to have your friendships and your good relationships, and you still crack your jokes and you still try to be positive, right? But the only thing is, everybody's mind, there's still that underlying fact, right? Which is we're 1-5. The seat starts getting warmer and warmer, pressure starts raising, and especially in a city like this where we haven't seen any sort of continued consistent success from the Dolphins. So as a player, you're probably like, well, I'm playing as hard as I can. I'm practicing as hard as I can. Maybe some of them aren't. I don't know. That's also a problem fans don't really know if this team is really working hard.
We really don't know what goes on behind closed doors.
No.
And, we're not even there really during the week when the team is practicing for a Sunday game. If they're practicing Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, sometimes Wednesday's practices are a walkthrough. So it's kind of an estimation who will play and who will not play. But you're right, Matt. We really do not know what player is working and what player is, maybe on social media or maybe, playing video games. I mean, really, these are everyday gentlemen just like you and I. We really don't know, and these are good things to look at through a lens sometimes.
Right. And coaches and players, it's easy to stand up on a podium and say, yes, we're working hard, but that's easy.
Are you really? Exactly.
Are you really?
No, yeah, of course. And, I've noticed that when Brian Flores speaks after the game and, even before practices, I've noticed he likes to, repeat sometimes. He likes to, say the same thing over and over. We just got to be better with the special teams, the kicking game, the run game. I mean, hey, Flores, we know, you and I know firsthand, your team doesn't have a decent running game. I mean, I can look from week 1 of, 2019 all the way to now. I probably can't even pick out 5 games where a running back averaged 100 yards or more in that singular game. So, for him to just repeat himself over and over, it's kind of frustrating because it's like, what exactly are you going to do to fix that run game? Not just stand up in front of media guys and ladies who are, required, I should say, to ask questions because that's what, we obviously want to get paid to accomplish. But when you, repeat yourself over and over and then what you're saying doesn't really pertain to what's being done on the football field, it's definitely frustrating for fans who pay a lot of money for these games. It's frustrating for you and I who are aspiring sports journalists. And it really is frustrating, for diehard Dolphins fans, our mothers and fathers, our grandparents who've supported this team for over 30, 40 years. I mean, it's got to be frustrating when you look at your head coach repeating himself over and over, and it's just the same results every time.
Well, for sure. It comes off like he's dancing around the question. Like it's just, if I just say these things over and over again, that should suffice. And it's just, in my opinion, and I agree with you here, it's redundant. It starts to get old in the minds of people like us, other media members, fans. Obviously, that goes without saying. It's been too long for the Dolphins to be like this, and Flores is just adding to it essentially. And he's never going to admit that. He's never going to say that publicly, but he knows. We know that he hasn't. It looked like he was advancing this franchise, but now he's kind of just done away with whatever progress he made. And it's extremely frustrating. It's incredibly frustrating to watch a team give you a hint that they're maybe on the right track and then just completely go in reverse.
Right.
So it's a tough situation. And Flores, I have a lot of respect for him. I don't want people to get me wrong. I'm going to be very clear here. Brian Flores is an upstanding guy. He's a good coach. I feel like he's made some questionable decisions as far as his own staff and his approach to alleviating this situation that is Dolphins football. It hasn't been good in over 2 decades.
Of course.
And the approach that he took to fixing it in the beginning, last year, in the second half of that season, people will tell you he's on the right track. He's doing what he needs to do. Now it's all in doubt, and for good reason. What else we can't do anything. It's all up to him.
Well, I'm liking that you're wearing a black Miami Heat hat because the Miami Heat did pick up, I believe it was a 30-plus point victory over the defending world champion Milwaukee Bucks last night. So we have the Miami Heat. We have the Florida Panthers who have won their first 4 games to open their season. Yes. I mean, hey, maybe Miami Heat basketball and Florida Panthers hockey is, what keeps South Florida sports rolling, right?
Hey, whoever's watching this, whoever does watch it, they're probably not going to like it because they're football fans predominantly. This is a basketball town, okay? The Heat have made this a basketball town.
It's been a basketball town since Pat Riley became president of basketball.
This is a basketball town that's anchored by Pat Riley. You said it best. And I'm wearing this hat because that's a franchise that has had consistent success, and we know what they're going to put out. Even if they're not as talented some years, we know they're going to come out and play hard. So,
Matt, before we close tonight's show, I have to get your prediction. We've been spot on sometimes. We've been close with our score predictions. Some of our score predictions / spread predictions have been a little off, including my Week 5 one when the Dolphins traveled to Tampa Bay. But week 7, a home game, the Dolphins are underdogs. I love really underdog mentality because Brian Flores himself, his team has won games when the Dolphins were an 8-9 point underdog. His team has won games when they were a 1-2 point underdog. Do you see Miami finally snapping this 5-game losing streak? And do you see fans exiting Hard Rock Stadium? I don't necessarily want to say jumping for joy because I wouldn't be jumping for joy for a football team that sits at 2-5, knowing that on Halloween Day, October 31st, your next game after this one will be against the Buffalo Bills, who came off a very, very tough loss on Monday Night Football against the Tennessee Titans. I love Sean McDermott. I love General Manager Brandon Beane. I don't like that play call that they did call on 4th and inches. I know you want to put the ball in your best player's hands with being Josh Allen, but on 4th and inches, I think they honestly should have went play action, forced Stephon Diggs, and try to draw a pass interference. But this is not a Buffalo Bills podcast. So, Matt, how do you see Sunday's result falling out? Dolphins, Falcons, week 7.
Are we allowed to do losses? I don't.
Oh, we're allowed to do wins. We're allowed to do losses. We're allowed to do blowout losses. We're allowed to even do a 20-20 tie if that's.
I like that. I like that. We're allowed. There's no forcing. Okay, I like that. Okay, I'm gonna be that guy. I'm gonna say Atlanta's gonna win this game. We're gonna fall to 1-6, and the anger is just gonna grow more for everybody. I think Tua's gonna have a good game. I don't think it's going to have anything to do with him. But if it does, that's even worse. It wouldn't shock me.
Well, you know Dolphins Twitter is going to react whether Tua throws for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns or whether he throws for 120 yards, 1 touchdown, let's say, and 3-4 INTs. If you're a Dolphins fan right now, you simply don't want to be on Twitter because these ESPN guys, these NFL Network men and women, I mean, they're blasting Brian Flores' squad. Brian Flores is clearly on the hot seat, whether you want to say it or not. And I can tell you right now from a football operation standpoint, when they sit in the box, Stephen Ross, I can tell you right now, he's definitely not a big fan. And he knows damn well that this team sitting at 1-5, these were not the expectations. I'm not saying this team was supposed to be 5-1 after 6 games, but look at what the Dallas Cowboys have done. I mean, Jerry Jones himself knew that this was a make-or-break year. The return of Dak Prescott, the growth and maturity of wide receiver CeeDee Lamb, the growth and maturity of running back Ezekiel Elliott. We've seen, and really even, I got to give an extra amount of credit to Stephon Diggs' brother, Trayvon Diggs, who literally is turning into the Xavier Howard of 2019 and 2020. But to jump off that boat for just a bit, I honestly really do see the Dolphins picking up their second victory of 2021. Depending on the status of Xavier Howard, depending on the status of Byron Jones, depending on the status of Parker and Preston Williams, we'll see how that route goes. But for now, you got to remember, too, it's also supposed to rain. And I know a lot of people might laugh at me, well, Brandon, what does rain really have to do with the game? The ball's slippery when it rains. Miami's used to playing at Hard Rock Stadium. Players like this are used to playing with a wet football. If you're Albert Wilson, that's something different because he still doesn't know how to catch a football after catching really everything during training camp. I'm sorry, Albert. I had to do it. But I'm going to take the Dolphins 21-17. I think it's going to be a low-scoring game. I think Atlanta will have an early lead. I think that we'll have, Brian Flores' squad will have a second-half comeback. Don't be surprised, however, if the Atlanta Falcons pull out a win and improve to 500, and me walking out of Hard Rock Stadium with my football team sitting at 1-6 after 7 weeks. The floor is yours, Matt.
Man, I want to see it. I really do. I just don't. Man, I'm going to take Atlanta. I'm going to go 27-21 Atlanta. I think Tua is going to be responsible for all the points that we score. I think he's going to have a great game, but it's not going to matter. There's too many holes on this team. That's all I'm going to say, and I think something's got to give. Something has to give.
Well, hey, if the Dolphins lose Sunday, they're most likely going to lose on Halloween Day. So that'll put them at 1-7. Then they return home November 7th versus the Houston Texans. That might be maybe NFL's week. That might be, let's see, is that week 8? Week 9. That might be the most watched football game in week 9 because you're probably going to have 2 1-7 teams battling it out. Unless there's a 21-21 tie, someone has to pick up their second victory of the season. But Matthew, as always, thank you for joining on. It's a pleasure always talking football with you, always talking Miami Dolphins football with you, even throwing in some Miami Heat chat, some Florida Panthers chat. And you have to honestly give me some credit that I didn't roast you about the Miami Hurricanes. So you have to give me
no, God, we were on such a
24
positive
minutes
note.
into tonight's
You had
show.
to throw it in there. Come on.
Hey, Manny Diaz is still Miami's head coach, though. So we'll see how the dominoes fall out there.
Just wait. Yeah, he's as good as gone. And all right, just wait.
For Brandon Liguori, you can follow me on Twitter at capital BRANDON, capital R, and capital LIGUORI. And you can follow Matthew Morin on Twitter at capital MD, capital MORIN, the number 1 and the number 3. Matt, as always, thank you. I really, really appreciate it. PhinManiacs listeners, wherever you may be listening to this podcast, please like, please subscribe. Any positive feedback. We'll even take negative feedback as well. It only betters ourselves.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much, guys. Enjoy your football Saturday. Enjoy your football Sunday. Brandon Liguori, Matthew Morin. Fins up as always, ladies and gentlemen.